Cool. I'll pass it over to you now, Kate.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Structex's presentation for the Virtual Careers Fair. A little bit of housekeeping just to kick off. If you haven't already, if you could just have yourself on mute through the presentation. That doorbell is reassuring because it does mean that people are joining us and tuning in. Any questions that you have as we go along, if you want to pop them in the chat box. I have established I can't actually see that while I'm presenting, but members of the team or Aaron will keep an eye on that and try to answer those at the end. If we don't get to them all, my email address is in the presentation, so I'm more than happy if people have any questions and they want to get in touch, you can email me directly and we can go through those. So just to kick us all off and to get your brains a wee bit engaged, can you in the chat box now just put down the last movie that you watched? So what was the last movie that you either went to the movies to see or you watched on some streaming service, multiple streaming services around? So it's just to warm up and get everybody engaged. Oh, cool, now I can see the screen. Okay. Fantastic Mr. Fox, Fantastic Beasts, Cop Out, When We Were Kings. Interesting. Bad Boys. Shrek. Oh, another great movie. Brittany, yeah, good soundtrack to Shrek. Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so kicking off. So my name is Kate and I am the practice manager here at Structex. I have been working for the business coming up 10 years this year in one form or another. So my role looks after HR and recruitment, as well as various aspects of finance, social media and marketing. With me today, as you can see on the slide, we've got James Morris, who is our principal and senior structural engineer. And we've also got Rania who is our structural engineer. So I'll get them both just to do a quick hi and introduction. Starting with you, James.
Yeah, good. I'm James. I went through Canterbury University and was lucky enough to start with Structex as a summer intern after my second pro year. And then as a graduate after third pro back at the end of 2009. And so, yeah, I've had many amazing opportunities with Structex and am now in the fortunate position of leading the business in the principal role. So it's been a pretty cool journey. Rania.
Hi, I'm Rania, and I'm the new structural engineer. I was taken on as an intern back in 2021, and I was fortunate enough to become a graduate just recently, back in November 2021. And it's been a very great experience, and it was a lot better than what my other friends have gone through in terms of, well, work-life balance, where they work every single day, but except me, I work only every day except every second Fridays, which is great. Love this company.
We'll talk a wee bit. Yeah, we'll talk a wee bit about that later on to make sense to people listening. Cool, thanks, Rania. Perfect. So that's a little bit around the people on the presentation today. So now, who is Structex? So as you might have guessed from the name, well, hopefully you've passed the first test by guessing by the name that we are a structural engineering design consultancy. That's probably the #1 question at the in-person careers fairs that I always have a little chuckle at when people come up and say out loud Structex and then ask which field of engineering we specialise in. I always thought the name gave it away, but apparently not always. So we have offices in Christchurch, Nelson and Timaru. As you can see here, Structex was founded back in 2003 by Jeff Banks. And while Jeff retired recently at the end of last year, we still have several staff members who were part of the founding office back when Structex started. So they are still with us today in our team. Structex, like many small businesses, has evolved over the last 19 years, including our expansion into Timaru in 2008 and Nelson in 2020. Like many things in our business, the reason for opening a Timaru office was centered around our people. So people are at the forefront of many business decisions that we have. We believe that you don't build a business, you build the people, and the people build your business. So the Timaru office came about from Damien, who is a senior architectural technician wanting to relocate back to Timaru for family reasons. So rather than lose him as an employee, we investigated the viability and we opened an office in Timaru, of which Damien is a key integral part. In Timaru, we share an office with DLA Architects, and they are a key partner in many of our local projects that we work on within the region. For similar reasons, in 2014, we had our first Structex staff member working from Nelson. So Petra was working for us, and again, for family reasons, wanted to relocate to Nelson. So she initially started working from Stake & Smith's office, who are another key partner of ours, and they share our office here in Christchurch. She then was working from home, and in 2020, we actually opened an office in Nelson with a ex-staff member who had been in the UK and Canada on his OE returning Blair. So we took the opportunity to actually establish an office which has a mutual relationship with Stake & Smith. So as you can see there, in 2015, we moved into our new office, which we're in now on the corner of Montreal Street and Cambridge Terrace in Christchurch. And Stake & Smith have a small team which share our office here. So in Nelson and Christchurch, we share that mutual relationship with Stake & Smith, which is great. So that brings us to today. So in 2023, Structex is celebrating 20 years in business, which is a phenomenal milestone, which we are all looking forward to being a part of celebrating. We haven't yet decided what that looks like, but there will be a party for sure. We have 3 regional offices, so Christchurch, Nelson and Timaru. We have 16 staff, of which all but one has a staff photo there. So the minion does actually represent our office manager. She is a bit camera shy, doesn't like having a photo taken, but loves her minions. So we often use a minion to represent Catherine with her permission, of course. And Structex is a trusted partner to many local and regional clients, which allows us involvement in a varied range of projects across industries and regions in New Zealand and also overseas. So we have clients who have some interesting international projects that Structex has been involved in over the years as well. And typically that's come out of a trusted client relationship locally. So that leads us nicely onto what do we do, which is probably the most interesting aspect for you as engineering students. What projects do we work on? So James is going to talk us through a little bit about the projects that we get involved in as a business, as this is usually a key focus of conversation at the careers fair. Thanks, James.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so the big question, what do we do? And as Kate's introduced, so we're structural specialists, and we do like to cover a wide variety of project types, but primarily focused in the commercial sector. So on this slide, you can see some examples of this, which range from Christchurch's tallest building on the top centre left, to a backcountry hut in South Westland down on the bottom row there, and incorporates most things in between. And so while we're a small firm, we try to punch above our weight in the scale and complexity of projects that we get involved with. So as an engineer, this means that day to day there's variety, and we're kept on our toes about what might come next. So I thought it might be helpful just to delve in a bit deeper into 3 projects to give you a bit more insight into these. So the first one we've got there is the Restart Container Mall. So the concept for this was very much developed in the early recovery phase after the February 2011 earthquake, and it was actually built within the CBD red zone cordon during a time of many aftershocks. That was an interesting environment. And as a graduate, this was one of my first new building designs. So that was a pretty amazing opportunity at the time, and still seems pretty special to me looking back on this. So the tricky thing with containers is they're a super efficient structure. So when you start cutting holes in them for windows and doors and that sort of thing, they very quickly lose their strength. So we designed a system of small steel frames within each of the containers, and with that we were able to convert them into a building that could be adapted and shifted down the road over the years to make way for the new buildings that were starting to pop up. And you might be able to make out some of these frames in the top right image there in a partially completed container with a whopping opening in the side of it. So this was a restart was meant to last 6 months, but in the end it lasted 6 years. So that just illustrated the success of that. The photos on the bottom line there are one of the shifts that happened as we moved it down the road. So that all happened in a single night shift. That was an interesting aspect of that. The next project we've got to show you is the New Brighton Pier earthquake repairs. So our role in this was actually the design of the temporary works. And if you haven't come across the terminology of temporary works before, these are the structures that are required to facilitate the building of the permanent structure. So it's often something that doesn't get seen, but is an integral part of a project. And we like getting involved in temporary works designs for large-scale civil projects, as they are often very complex and push us to think outside the box. And this one was definitely one of those. So for this, we designed large diameter steel cofferdams, which wrapped around each of the columns of the pier. And that gave a dry working space below water level for the workers to make permanent repairs to the plastic hinges which develop in the concrete columns. And you can see an example of this in the top right corner, where the white collar around the column is actually the permanent repair designed by others, and the outer ring is the cofferdam that we designed. So that is trailing off into the beach below. That example there was above the high tide mark, which was used as a bit of a trial verification. And then that same system was stepped out along the length of the pier into every column. The lower right image is a screenshot from our drawing package, which we thought was interesting because it showed how these cofferdams were intended to be installed by a mobile crane parked on the pier above. And we've actually got a really exciting temporary works project on the go at the moment. Unfortunately, I can't tell you about it right now, but keep an eye out on our social media pages later in this year for that. And then our last project that we just wanted to highlight today was Christchurch Adventure Park. So we had quite a wide involvement in the design of this, which included 4 buildings in the base village, including the showcase cafe building, which we were able to incorporate heavy use of engineered timber and some sustainable design principles in that. And you can see that in the upper two, the left 2 images there. 2 pedestrian bridges, and although they look reasonably simple, they were quite tricky, where vibration control and avoidance of resonance was paramount for pedestrian bridges. And also we got involved in the design of 4 zip lines, which some of you might have had a go on. And so that included both the highest and the longest zip line in the country. So that was particularly interesting. And so we actually do annual inspections of the zip lines as part of our ongoing maintenance and certification. Sorry, as part of the zip lines ongoing maintenance and certification. And it just so happens the quickest way to inspect those is to go for a ride. So we've got a wee video to show us having some fun along the way.
Cool, thanks, James. And one of the people featured in that video was Bailey, who was an intern for us back in 2018 and has been with Structex as a structural engineer since. So he couldn't be with us today, unfortunately, but I do have some feedback from him as a part of the presentation. So now you know what we do and who we are. A little bit around why you would choose Structex. So what is in it for you as an intern or a graduate as an employee? So I'll run through a few aspects and key highlights, and then I'll hand over to Rania, who's going to talk about his experience as a summer intern and why he chose to come on board with us as a graduate. And as I said, I've also then got some feedback from Bailey and Josh, who was our summer intern last year in Nelson and is starting with us in Christchurch at the beginning of next year as a graduate. So one of the key things that is really important to stress for me as we talk to students is the focus on support. So as an intern, you come into the business, and actually the aim of an internship for us is for you to really understand what a structural engineering consultancy does. So what would you be doing day to day if you came to work here as a graduate? It's not our aim to save up all of our filing and scanning and paperwork that no one wants to do on a day-to-day basis that we're going to get a summer intern to magically do for us over the summer. That doesn't add a lot of value to you as you head back to university, and also doesn't help you decide on what you want to do in terms of career. So we ensure that you have a one-on-one mentor, both as an intern as a graduate, to be able to support and guide you from day one in terms of someone to ask those questions to. It can be quite daunting, and Bailey mentions this in his feedback. It can be quite daunting coming from university as an intern into the working environment. So you're not a graduate yet, you're a student. You may not know what to expect. It could be your first opportunity of working in a professional office and work environment. So we want to make sure that you have someone that you can ask what you might think are silly questions in a safe environment where you can get answers and feel supported. We like to think that the whole team is really approachable, but I feel sometimes it doesn't matter how approachable you are, people still feel a wee bit daunted asking what they think might be a silly question. As a graduate, when you come on board as a permanent employee, you have an annual training budget, which allows you access to attend a wide range of development opportunities that you are interested in. These can both be technical or soft skills. So we appreciate that when you are studying, you often don't get a lot of focus on things like time management or communication. And these are all aspects that go into making a well-rounded professional engineer. So we're here to support you to add to your skill set and in any areas that you need to. As a professional development partner with Engineering New Zealand, Structex is also committed to developing a pathway for you to realise your full potential as a professional engineer. Working hours, so Rania touched on this a little bit before. Back in 2016, we introduced what we called a 980 working fortnight. So this meant that all of our full-time staff worked their hours over 9 days in a fortnight, and then every second weekend, everybody had a 3-day weekend. So the office was completely closed on one Friday every fortnight. Over the past couple of years, we have continued to adapt this model with feedback and enhancements from staff, partly thanks to COVID, which has meant that we needed to have the full ability to drop at a moment's notice and work from home. So this is now evolved into a fully flexible working model. So many staff still enjoy the 980 fortnight, of which Rania is one. However, we also have staff who are enjoying hybrid working. So that is working a mixture of from home and from the office, compressed working weeks, or reduced hours. So whilst we still have the opportunity for people to do a 9-day working fortnight, we're no longer closed on a Friday to our clients and to the public. So we have adapted and continue to take on board feedback from staff, and we now have a model that allows individuals to let us know what works best for them. Work is not always about work though, and at Structex we have a strong focus on wellbeing and staff welfare. So we have a wellbeing committee that plans social activities and outings. Also can't forget to mention that we have an office pool table. So there sees many of the team engaging in lively banter and competitive games at most morning and afternoon tea breaks. It's a great addition to the office because you know it's morning tea time or afternoon tea time because you hear the pool balls break. And sometimes when you're busy and the day gets away on you, you hear that in the background and it's an indicator of what the time is, which is quite useful. Feedback is important at any stage of your career. So as a graduate, you will engage in monthly catch-ups with your manager, as well as formal reviews of your development every 6 months. We have a values-based culture here at Structex. So whilst we evaluate on performance and productivity as our staff go through the year, we're also really interested in who you are while you're meeting those goals. So what sort of person are you? What are you contributing to the team? What are people enjoying about working with you in terms of the values that the business upholds and what we look for in our projects and our clients as well. So it's really important to us that the relationships that we have with people are at the forefront of what we do. It's not just about tuning out work, it's about enjoying wanting to come to work as well. So just on that, you also get your birthday off or any day in the week of your birthday. Study leave, you can trade your birthday leave for a community day. So if there is a community activity happening in the year that you're really passionate about, it could be planting trees, picking up rubbish, then you can trade your birthday off day for a community day and paid parental and partner leave as well. And most recently, we have just rolled out a new wellbeing benefit and Rania's favourite benefit, the corporate clothing allowance. So one of the things that we acknowledged, especially for our more recent staff in terms of graduates, that having the opportunity to provide corporate clothing, but also an allowance to get other additional items to build a professional wardrobe for when you start work. It's often the most common question I get before people come in for an interview or for their first day of work is, what should I wear? So we've made that easy in terms of helping with some reimbursement to be able to go out and purchase work attire if you don't have any. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over now to Rania, who's going to talk to you a little bit around what made him choose Structex for his internship and then decide that he'd like to be stuck with us and come and accept a graduate position, a highlight of his career and a bit of advice. So over to you, Rania.
Thank you, Kate. So I'd actually come across Structex back in my second professional year when applying for internships. It really stood out to me to the rest of the companies in terms of quality of life and the way it treats its employees. So again, with the flexible work hours, if you choose to do so, you can have your workload of 80 hours spread across 9 days. So your every second Friday is off and you have a 3-day weekend. And furthermore, I actually really like the emphasis of like a smaller specialized team tackling a wide range of diverse projects. This actually meant that I would receive support every step of the way during my internship. Most large companies and firms see interns as a temporary item and just simply don't take them on as graduates. But during my internship, Structex had kept me busy and gave me plenty of projects to work on. It was as if they were training me to become a graduate from the very beginning. And this type of mindset in terms of taking on interns properly and training them, and then it just simply provides them ways to unleash their potential. And it ultimately led me to choose Structex when it came time to find a graduate position. And the highlight of my experience at Structex to date is that there's actually like a definite sense of accomplishment whenever you finish a project or something goes really well. From all the way back as an intern, the first day that I started and up to my current role, the team really makes an emphasis on recognizing the work done by people, their contribution and hard work. At every weekly meeting, people would nominate each other and recognize success in what's called a team win. And it's just these little things that really make, your work satisfying and working at Structex worthwhile, really. And my piece of advice to students looking for these internships and graduate positions is that when you look for an internship, don't be too hard on yourself if your application gets rejected, or when the interview has gone really well, but you get turned down the last step. Instead of being discouraged, try sending an email asking why you've been turned down, or what went wrong. And likely more than not, they may send a response to you, and you might, leave them some room to consider you next time when you apply for a role at the same company in the future. And that's all for me. Thanks. On to you, Kate.
Thanks, Rania. And that is really good advice. So that is something that I actually really appreciate when students are unsuccessful. I always try to give feedback because I feel like the only way that you can improve is to actually ask and take on board feedback, which is no different to when you're actually working. So yeah, thanks, Rania. I think that's really good advice, and I hope that people take that on board. So I asked Bailey the same questions, and this is a slightly different feedback, and he started his internship in 2018 and has been working with us in his structural engineering role since January 2020. So slightly different point in his career, but interesting to get his view on the similar questions. So he had 3 criteria while he was looking for, this was all news to me when I read this, so it was quite interesting. It's always interesting to find out what was going through someone's mind while he was looking for an internship at the end of his second professional year. So the first one was to get some exposure to some exciting structural engineering projects. The second was to find somewhere that was willing to invest time and energy into development. And the third, interestingly enough, was to be out of Christchurch for the summer. So he came across Structex at the careers fair. We clearly ticked 2 of those criteria, and so he put in an application. He does note there that only being a Christchurch-based company at the time, he had reservations going into his internship. So we did have our Timaru office, so that office was open, but we weren't actively recruiting for an intern for that office. So in terms of opportunities, I think that he was focused on the Christchurch team. So during the interview, he has said that his reservations about being in Christchurch were quickly put to the side as he was walked through the company visions. So one thing that jumped out to him was our motto of small firm, unlimited potential. So we do acknowledge that we are a small business and we are not trying to be anything different. We believe that there is a real power to a small team in terms of being able to share and support each other, but also really get to know our clients. So a lot of our successes come down to the relationships that we've built with the clients through being able to take the time to get to know them personally as well. So needless to say, Bailey chose to stay in Christchurch for the summer, and here he is 4 years later. So during his internship, he got exposure to a number of exciting commercial and high-end residential developments throughout the city, and he gained an appreciation of the vast amount of work that's gone into rebuilding Christchurch over the last decade. And this was one of the key reasons that he stayed on as a graduate, is the continued development that Structex is able to offer as a small, tight-knit team. So that is a really similar theme to you, Rania. So that's yeah, really, really pleasing for us to hear. And he's since been given the opportunity to lead his own projects and to gain exposure to all aspects of the design process. So working alongside clients and various stakeholders to add value and bring ideas to life. And Bailey is certainly over time expressed that this was something that he probably didn't expect to be able to do so early in his career. And that's probably a really important point, that because we are a small business, and in a moment I'll talk about what vacancies we have, we're not taking on a large number of interns and graduates all at once. So we don't have a program where you spend X amount of years doing this type of aspect of a project and then you move on to something else. We encourage you to take control of your career and your development, and to ask and feed into us what support you need from the really talented team we have here to be able to make that happen. So we don't have a set pathway of where we expect you to be after 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. We can obviously work with you to guide and set those goals, but as Bailey mentioned, he didn't expect to be able to be where he is now, and that is due to his individual drive and commitment. And so our team is quite unique in that way, with different people having different specialties, different passions and different goals, and we like to think that we can actually be quite flexible and nimble in our projects to help people focus on their passions. Highlight of his career, funnily enough, is what we just saw in his video, is his opportunity to design the series of zip lines and the supporting towers, leveraging off the design work at the adventure park. So he mentions there that this process highlighted the importance of breaking problems down to first principles, as the work was beyond the scope of the building code. And he also enjoyed working in a really collaborative environment with clients in the adventure tourism industry, geotechnical engineers, and various other stakeholders. So that's where communication is a really key part of what we're looking for in our interns and graduates, the ability to get involved in those client relationships. So his piece of advice is to take your time choosing companies that align with your passions and values. Focus on finding a role where the work will challenge you and allow you to develop and learn from the people you're surrounded by. It's a daunting transition moving from uni into the workforce, but an extremely rewarding one when you start seeing the value you're adding to the communities around you. So yeah, that was really, really interesting feedback for Bailey to be able to reflect back to 4 years ago when he was, or 5 years ago when he was in the position of those of you looking for an internship, and then a graduate. So that's Bailey's. And then this is just some feedback that Josh gave us. So Josh was our summer intern, as I mentioned, in the Nelson office last year. He has decided that Christchurch is where he'd like to be as a graduate. So he will be joining us in the Christchurch office at the start of 2023. So he has reiterated some of the themes already. He worked on a large range of projects. So as an intern, from large commercial to smaller residential, we created a workplace where all employees have a say in projects and decisions, and it made him feel really valued. So yeah, that again, really good feedback from Josh. So on to what opportunities we have. So being a small team, as I mentioned, so we have 16 staff across our 3 offices. This year, we have filled our graduate position for Christchurch with Josh. So we are looking for expressions of interest for 1 summer intern in the Christchurch office and 1 graduate in the Nelson office. So we have 2 opportunities that are up on our website now live. As you can see there, so I'm sure you all know how internships run, but they typically run from November to February. You have the opportunity to find out what it is like to work as a structural engineer. So as Rania has noted, as Bailey has, and Josh, the aim of our internship is to actually give you hands-on practical insight into the work that we do and how you can apply what you're learning at university. We provide an induction program to get you familiar with Structex. You'll have a buddy, social activities to get to know the team. And as Rania said, it is our aim to make you feel like we are wanting you to be here for the long term. So we treat our internships as essentially a preemptor for a recruitment program for a graduate. So if we have a graduate vacancy, we don't always. So there have been a couple of years in my 10 years that we may not have taken on a graduate. So it's not a given that we will have a graduate role and that you will automatically go from the internship into a graduate position. But if we do have a graduate position and the summer internship has gone well from both parties, then we would certainly maintain contact and through your final year and hopefully offer you the role. As a graduate, you'll get involved in a variety of local and regional work with a level of responsibility. And then I've said that if you're up for it. So that's what Bailey was alluding to. If you are demonstrating your drive and your passion and you're up for the challenge, then we're happy to challenge you, knowing that that support and safety net is there for whatever you might need to progress that development. The one-on-one mentoring continues. We celebrate significant occasions in the lives and careers of our people, so birthdays, graduations, work anniversaries. You get the day off to attend your graduation, and also, as I mentioned, your birthday off. We have a welcoming, supportive and flexible work environment, and quite topically, we have free annual flu vaccinations. This is just a little, a couple of wee pictures here just to break up the Structex slides. So the first one is just a bit of a visual demonstrating around taking the time to really understand what it is that you're wanting from your internship or from a company in terms of a graduate position. So you spend a lot of time climbing the ladder, you spend a lot of time on your development and your professional pathway. Just make sure that you are excited about what's going to happen at the other end, because you do put a lot of time and energy into it. And the second one is just showing a bit of a reflection of what's happened over the last couple of years. That's how we think that life is going to work when you're in January, and then you see December, and then all of a sudden all of these snakes and ladders go all over the life board, and you go up to go down to then go across to go up to then go down again. So picking up on Rania's feedback or advice before, you won't always get every opportunity that you go for. You may get feedback that you're not expecting. Something may not go quite as well as you'd hoped, but that is life. It's around learning from those opportunities, getting feedback, picking yourself up and moving forward. So the very last process, as we're going well for time, is just around what is our recruitment process. So the very first thing I've put there may seem self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do their research. So for those of you who are listening now, obviously you have seen that we are presenting and you've chosen to come on and listen to us. And if what you've heard is of interest, you'll put in an application. So making sure you understand our business and what you're looking for to ensure it aligns with what you're looking for is really important when you put in an application. It saves you time, saves us time if we get down the track and discover you're really interested in becoming a geotech engineer. And unfortunately, that's not an area of specialty that Structex can assist you with. Prepare your application. Take your time to prepare your application. I know it can seem really tempting to bulk send out a whole lot of CVs and cover letters to a number of businesses when it comes to internships or graduate positions. My number one key piece of advice today is take the time to tailor your application. Please check for spelling mistakes and that you've addressed the cover letter to the right person. I don't know the number of letters in my entire time of being in the recruitment and HR industry that have been addressed to Mr. So-and-so or a completely different company. I will be really honest, most of the time when I get those applications, I don't continue to read the rest of the cover letter or the CV. So it wouldn't matter you know, how good you may have presented yourself. If you can't take the time to address it to the right company or the right person, it gives the impression that your attention to detail is not great, which coming into an engineering role and working with our clients gives us a pretty good first impression of your ability to pay attention to those little finer details. Please also ensure that you submit a copy of your transcript with your application. So this saves time and us having to follow up to send this through. So this can either be a snapshot from your online university portal or a PDF. Please don't copy and paste it into a Word document because we would like to see that it actually has your name with the aspect of the grades as well. So if you could send that through with your application in the first instance, that would be really useful. It just saves a step in me coming back to ask for it. So then you can apply. So it's through the Structex website, which I understand the link has gone out in this material from the university. The vacancies are also up on the NZ Uni Talent website, or my email address is there. So you can take note of that email address for any questions, or you can email your application directly through to me. So applications are open now, and they'll be open through to the 31st of May. The next step in the process of shortlisters is you'll receive an email from me inviting you to complete a couple of additional questions. So the reason we're doing this year is usually we have the opportunity to stand and talk to you and find out a little bit about you at the Careers Fair. Today's all about us. We don't have that same opportunity to get to know the personality or the person behind the bit of paper in terms of the CV. So we're giving you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about you. So we'll have a few questions. It's not going to be onerous. It's not a trick. They're not things that require research or anything other than just showing us a bit of your personality. So we want to receive it in a creative way. So you can either send us a really short video or an audio file, or you can just simply respond via email with a presentation, or just simply answer the questions. It's entirely up to you, but what we're looking for is that opportunity to learn more about you rather than just what we read on your paper documents. So gives you a chance just to add a bit of personality to your application as to why should we consider you for our roles. Then if progressed, COVID permitting, face-to-face interview. Let's hope that that all tracks along the way it is, because nothing can actually replace face-to-face interaction. And then the final step, if that all goes well, is an offer to join the team. So that is the end of our official presentation. I found this, just to end on me not talking note, I found this on YouTube, which is a selection of bad interview, job interview clips from movies, which is probably falls into the what not to do if you get an interview, but is also, I'm sure that there are aspects of this that those of us who have interviewed or in a job or ever been interviewed can relate. So it's just a couple of minutes.
Oh, I don't have sound, Kate. Are you hearing anything?
What's that? Sorry, James?
I don't have sound on that. Are you hearing anything? I'm not sure if
Yes.
anyone else is.
Oh, has everyone got no sound? No sound. Okay. We'll flag that then. I can hear sound. So I'm not quite sure why sound is not coming through. Anyway, we'll flip on to the next one. Any questions? Has anyone got any questions while we have James and Rania here? Any questions for me or?
I had a quick question.
Great.
My name's Sven.
Hi, Sven.
Hi. It was just a question around, I guess it could be addressed to yourself or the graduates that you've hired. It was just around, is there any specific courses and stuff that you guys would prefer your graduates to take, or is there any courses that maybe your new graduates found really helped to, I guess, support them in their early career startings, especially with Structex and the structural consultancy sides of work, I guess?
Great question. I'll hand that over to either James or Rania, who have, I'm not an engineer, so, and I haven't studied it at the university. So I'll hand that over to one of the ones who have to jump in there, either James or Rania.
Yeah, I guess we'd be looking for the core structural papers in Third Pro, kind of as the main base. But Rania might be more up to play with what the current offering is in addition to those.
Yep. So for my final year, the core papers that you really need to do as a structural engineer is definitely ENCI 436, and that kind of establishes your core structural engineering kind of, knowledge. And then going further from that, you've also got 413 and 438, which are respectively design, which is a design project kind of course where you work alongside other disciplines such as stormwater, geotech, and then one other environmental paper and water engineering, and I think and of course the structural engineering. And so in that course you work together with 4 others designing some kind of structure, or for my year, we actually designed like a boat shed or a dormitory just down by the Avon River with the boat, Avon Water Sports Boat Club, or where they had a rowing team. And the other courses you can take is 437 and 438, which is more structural papers. And the last one is an earthquake paper, which you need background knowledge to, because you need to know how an earthquake works and how the structure kind of responds to that. I had actually taken a fire paper as well, fire engineering paper, simply because it interests me in terms of how a structure responds in a fire, basically, and that kind of fascinated me. And I took that paper just because it interests me. So you don't need to go fully structural papers, but you do need those core structural courses to be able to do structural engineering. If that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rania. Yeah, that answers it. Yeah, just I guess getting that foundation there and then building up from there with maybe some things that you enjoy, I guess. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yep.
Great, thanks for your questions. Ben, any other questions that anyone has? Let's check the chat box. No, nothing.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Great, hi Greta.
Hi there. I was just wondering, I've had a look at the internship application as well as all of this and realised it's only available for second to last year pro.
Second
I
pro,
was,
yeah.
I was wondering, would it be at all possible to apply earlier or even just for the experience, or would you, is it specifically just for that second pro?
It is in that, so firstly, having the foundation and experience and papers at university to be able to really get the value out of it. But also, as I mentioned earlier, we do use it as a pathway into our graduate program. So in previous career spheres, we have a lot of first pro students who are really interested, and we say, keep in touch, keep an eye on our social media and come and see us next year. For our internships. So yeah, it is, we are specifically targeting second pro students for these ones, Greta.
Okay.
Yep, and just kind of putting some more input. You definitely need to be at least second pro to do some of the more simple designs that the University of Canterbury offers. For example, NCI 213, you need that as a basis of understanding the standards to be used in a work.
Okay, sweet. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Greta.
This is a question for Rania. What were some of the favorite things that you got to do as an intern? What was it that excited you or got you more interested to keep on?
Well, I would love to answer this question actually. So back in my internship, I had actually worked on a variety of projects, and one was actually my favorite one was definitely one where I could visit on a site. So I had worked on some timber structures up by the Kashmir Hills, I believe. And it was then where they prefabricated these amazing trusses. And what they did was just take that and prefabricate it. So it's pre-made, and then they just lift it onto the site and just kind of put them on like Lego blocks. And I got to see one of them on site, and it was just the scale of it was actually kind of blew me away. I was like, when you're in the office, all you see are these numbers, you see the height of this building, it's like 5 meters, 3 meters, and it's just a bunch of numbers to you. But when you get on site and see these things for yourself during for the first time, it really kind of gives you that sense of accomplishment that, oh yeah, I looked at this building, I designed a portion of it, and then you're there, you see it, and you're like, my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And how about, have you noticed anything like that Structex does to help the environment, or anyway that they might have been looking at, or that they are changing what they're doing to help the environment?
Yeah. Yep. So we have these things called Thirsty Thursdays, where the entire group goes out on a site visit to a project that's been recently completed. During my internship, there was this church project that a coworker of mine had worked on for years, and we went on site, and so you got to meet the client, and obviously alongside your coworkers, and so you would go around the tour, have a chat, and you could freely ask questions with your coworkers, and it was all quite casual, I'd say. It was less of a, oh, he's the boss, you gotta be quite uptight, you've got to present yourself well. Whereas when you go on these site visits, on these Thirsty Thursday, you actually go out on the site, and then after the site visit, you then go to a local pub and have some nice drinks with your bosses and coworkers, and it just kind of makes the environment a lot better, and you really get to know these people, because as Kate has said, we've only got 17 employees. You don't have to remember over 200 names if you work in a different company.
I wonder whether you might have been meaning the environment in terms of sustainability, or
I did mean in terms of sustainability, but that is also really amazing to hear as well.
Yeah,
that you go on site and you get to check these things, and it seems very collaborative environment. But yes, I did mean in terms of sustainability. Sorry.
Then James would know more.
Yeah, so
That's awesome, Rania, though. That's awesome.
yeah, thanks, Rania. Yeah, so I guess like everyone, we're on the journey at the moment, and so probably our core focus is incorporating sustainable and environmental design into our project, because at the end of the day, we have a huge influence on the built environment via our projects when compared with the operational impact of our small firm. So that's where our focus is right now, and we've got a team with internally dedicated to researching and upskilling the rest of the team on those aspects. So that's going well, but acknowledging that we are on a journey. In terms of operational side, we've measured our operational carbon footprint and have committed to offsetting that and reducing that moving forward, as well as incorporating donations to community-led environmental projects. So that's kind of a snapshot of our sustainability journey at the moment.
We also have a large number of staff who help our carbon footprint by biking to work or scootering, and we have some fancy bike racks in the office that we needed to expand recently, the number that we had, because we have a large number of the team who choose biking as their method to get around the city. As we were saying earlier, it's quite easy in Christchurch. We have a couple who have bought electric bikes, so we have actually one of our staff members who bikes in from Spencerville on an electric bike. It's actually quicker for him to do that than drive in the traffic and then have to find a car park. So yes, we're doing a range of things across the sustainability aspect.
Oh, that's really cool to hear.
Great question.
I was wondering, Rania as well, and James, if you could talk to maybe a bit about the balance between how much time you'd spend in the office and how much time you'd spend going out to site.
Yep. So for me, if you're talking about during the internship, then with the first time you come in, basically you'll probably be spending most of the time in the office in terms of designing, but Structex does offer a lot of site visits. During my internship, I think I went to about roughly 10 to 15 site visits, which actually is quite a lot. So maybe 9 out of 10 you'll be in the office, and then the rest of the time you'll be out in the field.
Cool.
Yeah, and I guess just adding to that, it's primarily a function of where you're at in your career. So typically early on in your career, when you're more involved in the detailed calculation side of the designs, you'd also be the one leading the site monitoring to make sure that the builder is building the design as we intended, because at the end of the day, you've got the most intimate knowledge of that design, so you're the best person to keep an eye over it. Then as you develop through your career, you transition or quickly transition into overseeing others leading site visits. So I guess I've gone through that spectrum, and I'm probably like more occasionally on site now at key moments in a building construction, whereas the design engineer is more there, is there more regularly. So it develops as you go.
Yep, and I think on average, I was like once a week I was out on site, and once or twice at least, every 1 or 2 weeks.
Cool.
Right. Any other questions? Just mindful of time. I'm assuming Aaron, you're still there.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Excellent.
Yeah, just as from your point of view as an engineering consultant firm, how does something like the 230 High Street happens?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I guess we'll find out more about that in due course. I guess we have it's obviously fundamentally important that that quality assurance processes are paramount in any engineering business. And so we have quite a strong focus on that. And that leads into our not only building the knowledge base of our team, but maintaining kind of baselines as well. So we have monthly quality workshop where we use that as a forum to all get together, learn from things that have gone well and things that haven't, learn about updates to industry best practice, and learn about how to incorporate that into our daily designs. So quality is an extremely strong focus for us, and yeah, it just, it's fundamentally important. So I guess that, yeah, we focus on that. Yeah.
Thanks, Greta. Any other questions? I'm very mindful of time, and that these are happening back to back. So if we haven't got to your question, or if you have any other questions, feel free to email them through to careers@structex.co.nz. If they are technical questions, I'll get one of the team to respond to them. Otherwise, I will respond to them directly. And yeah, if you need to know anything else, get in touch. Otherwise, we look forward to receiving applications from you. And thank you for your time today.
Cheers, guys. It's been really informative.
Great. Thanks, Brittany.
Cool.
Have a great day.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much
everyone.
for that. Yeah, appreciate it. Cheers.
See you later.
Oh.